वेलकम बैक माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स। आज हम बात करने जा रहे हैं इकोलॉजी एंड एनवायरनमेंट की। तो इकोलॉजी एंड एनवायरनमेंट में हम डिस्कस करेंगे हाउ एनवायरनमेंट अफेक्ट्स द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंड अबंडेंस ऑफ लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स। तो पहले हम बात करेंगे एनवायरनमेंट की। व्हाट डज एनवायरनमेंट मीन? एनवायरनमेंट सिंपली मीन्स physical, chemical and biotic factors that surround an organism and influence its living। कोई भी फैक्टर हो, फिजिकल हो, केमिकल हो या बायोटिक फैक्टर हो, that surrounds an organism and influences its living constitutes the environment of that organism. So clearly there are two components of environment, biotic component and abiotic component. Biotic component में आते हैं plants, animals and microorganisms, और abiotic कंपोनेंट में आते हैं फिजिकल फैक्टर्स लाइक वी हैव टेम्परेचर, देयर इज ह्यूमिडिटी, प्रेशर एट्सट्रा। एडाफिक फैक्टर्स विच इंक्लूड्स नेचर ऑफ सॉइल, सॉइल कैसी है, एंड केमिकल फैक्टर्स। ओके, some important abiotic factors that greatly influence the distribution and abundance of living organisms includes temperature, light, pressure, humidity, precipitation, wind, mineral elements of soil and composition of air. These are some important abiotic factors or environmental factors that has a great bearing on the distribution and abundance of living organisms. Now we'll talk about the organismal adaptations to the physical factors of the environment. First of all, हम आज बात करने जा रहे हैं टेम्परेचर की. Okay, how temperature affects the life, how it affects the distribution and abundance of living organisms. Temperature is regarded as the most important factor. It is one of the most influential factor that has a strong bearing on the distribution and abundance of living organisms because of two reasons. First, it affects the metabolic rates of living organisms. Second, there are a large number of living organisms that are unable to regulate their body temperature precisely. Okay, a large number of living organisms, they are unable to regulate their body temperature precisely, and that is why you can find them in specific regions of earth. For example, अगर हम reptiles देखेंगे, reptiles are most abundant in deserts, in hot regions, because they are unable to regulate their body temperature. You cannot find reptiles uh, in the alpines. They are not abundant in the alpines. Reason being, they cannot regulate their body temperature. Okay, they depend on external heat. This temperature, it varies seasonally. Okay, you know how seasons come into being because of rotation, revolution and tilt of the earth's axis. All these factors lead to the generation of different seasons. Okay, so you can say that temperature varies seasonally, and this temperature, it decreases progressively as we move from equator to poles. जब इक्वेटर से हम पोल्स की तरह जाते हैं तो टेम्परेचर कम कम होता जाता है. ओके, you can find sub-zero temperatures, you can find negative temperatures in polar regions, and this temperature can go beyond 50 degrees Celsius in tropical deserts. Okay, and moreover, this temperature, it also decreases as we move from plains to mountains. As we move from plains to mountains, temperature goes on decreasing. Now we know that temperature varies greatly both altitudinally as well as latitudinally. Altitudinally means as we move from plains to mountains, temperature decreases, and as we move from equator to poles, temperature decreases. Latitudinally means as we move from equator to poles, this is equator, as we move from here to here, temperature goes on decreasing progressively. Okay, it has been found that the mean atmospheric temperature changes by 6.5 degrees Celsius with every single degree latitude and 1000 meter altitude north of the equator. This is equator. As we cover 1 degree latitude, temperature decreases by 6.5 degrees Celsius, and at the same time, if you are climbing a mountain and you have climbed this much height, you have covered 1 kilometer, the temperature decreases by this much. And based on temperature, the earth has been divided into different latitudinal zones, which includes tropical rainforests, grasslands and deserts, deciduous forests, coniferous forests also known as taiga, and alpines also known as tundra. Okay, and each of these latitudinal zones they possess specific flora and fauna. That means they possess specific plants and animals because they are adapted to specific temperatures. Okay, example is the rhododendrons. These are the plants, and juniperus. Okay, they are restricted to alpines because they have specific adaptations to the temperature which is in the alpines. They cannot occur beyond alpines. They cannot occur, you cannot find them in the tropical rainforests because they are adapted to the temperatures that prevail in the alpines. Now something about temperature tolerance. What does temperature tolerance mean? The living organisms they have been divided, they have been categorized in two groups based on their temperature tolerance. One category is known as eurythermal and second one is known as stenothermal. Okay, what does eurythermal mean? Eurythermal, sorry, eurythermal organisms are those which can tolerate and live in a wide temperature range. वो organisms जो एक ब्रॉड टेम्परेचर रेंज में रह सकते हैं उनको हम बोलते हैं यूरिथर्मल. एंड स्टीनोथर्मल organisms are those which are restricted to narrow temperature ranges. Okay, they cannot occur for example beyond 10 degrees Celsius. They can occur for example in this temperature range from for example 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. You cannot find them beyond 25 degrees Celsius and below this 15 degrees Celsius. While as eurythermal organisms are those organisms which can occur for example from minus 2 to 32 or 39 degrees Celsius. Okay, so organisms have been divided into two categories, eurythermal and stenothermal, based on their temperature tolerance. While as eurythermal organisms can tolerate and live in a wide temperature range, the stenothermal organisms they are restricted to narrow ranges of temperatures. And the levels of thermal tolerance they determine the geographic distribution of different species. It is very much clear if the organisms are eurythermal they can be found in most parts of the earth. Okay, while as the stenothermal organisms you can find them in restricted locations. Okay, the plants they have been divided into four major groups based on temperature tolerance. This classification has been done by Ronkier. Okay, he divided the plants into four major groups: megatherms, mesotherms, microtherms, and hextotherms. What does megatherms mean? Megatherms are those plants which require high temperature throughout the year, and these plants are found in tropical rainforests. You can find megatherms in tropical rainforests. These plants require high temperature throughout the year. Second, mesotherms. They require low and high temperature alternatively. They require low temperature at one time and high temperature at another time. And megatherms are found in subtropical regions. The deciduous forests are the megatherms. Okay, the deciduous forests which are subjected to alternative low and high temperature they are known as mesotherms. Then we have microtherms. These plants need low temperature for growth. They need low temperature for growth, and the example is coniferous forests. The coniferous forests they need a constant low temperature. Okay, they need a constant low temperature for their reproduction and survival, and they are known as microtherms. And finally, the hextotherms. Hextotherms need very low temperatures for growth, and they can't withstand high temperatures. And the example is the alpine forests. Okay, So these are four different categories of plants based on their temperature tolerance. Megatherms, they require high temperature throughout the year, and the example is tropical rainforests. Then mesotherms, they require low and high temperature alternatively, and the example is deciduous forests. Then microtherms, they need low temperature for growth. Example is coniferous forests. And hecistotherms are those plants which require very low temperatures for growth and they can't withstand the high temperatures. And the example is alpine forests. So this is all for today. See you soon with a new lesson on the influence of temperature on the living organisms. Till then, take care.